So let's get into the news. And the first bit of the news, and I'm sorry if you guys don't really like the stories. I panicked this morning and I was like, these news stories. Community star Joel McHale is in talks to join Valiant's Quantum and Woody. We talked about the Quantum and Woody movie coming in, being a thing as one of Valiant's attempts to become, the next Marvel or DC with the movies. And actually, I would say with Valiant, it's like in all of media, because I know they're working on like 3 separate projects across film, TV, web TV, and I think there's another one I'm blanking on right now. But it looks like Joel McHale is joining the Russo brothers' new action comedy television series, adapting the seminal comic book title from Valiant Entertainment. And so Joel McHale would be playing Woody Henderson. Corey, you've talked a little bit about this when we first broke the news, reported on the news that Quantum and Woody was going to be happening. Can you explain to the people what Quantum and Woody is?
Oh, Lord. I go back to the old incarnation of Quantum and Woody from when Valiant was acquired by Acclaim back in the 90s. And they've since disappeared for a while and they came back. And they're doing very well. But Quantum and Woody it's basically like a buddy cop movie. These 2 guys have a gestalt power, which is they get their powers when they're in contact with each other, but they don't really like each other. They're both assholes in kind of different ways. It's like I'm an asshole, but I'm a totally different kind of asshole. It's like me and Nate.
Much like us.
Yeah, me and anybody really. It's a little bit Lethal Weapon, at least the first movie, but it's great comedy. There's something with a goat that comes along. I can't not see Joel McHale playing the character of Woody. Now that's been put in there. Yeah, well, that too. But he's a very sarcastic character. He's one of those guys who at least thinks he's the smartest guy in the room and isn't always wrong. Joel McHale is perfect for this.
Joel McHale's past 2 TV shows, he was playing this character.
He's been playing this character since he started on The Soup.
Yeah. Well, I never really watched The Soup, so I couldn't say that definitively. But you look at Community and you look at, so you don't include Soup, you look at Community, you look at The Great Indoors, he's playing the same egotistical, smart-ass character.
It
doesn't make sense. Yeah. So, and I should point out that the Russos, this is, the Russos and McHale coming back together, because they did, the Russos directed episodes of Community for directing Marvel movies and stuff. So what do you guys, Amy and Nate, what do you guys think of this news? Are you excited for this TV show? You care? I mean,
I have never heard of it. I read the show notes. I don't know what Quantum and Woody.
Quantum and Woody.
Is it it's a toy show?
It's originally it was a comic book, and Corey just gave us the brief overview of it. So
rudely, while he was giving us the overview, I was reading the show note about it to see if that gave any information. No, I mean, I'm excited for, if anything.
Nate's a guy who gets an audio book and needs pictures.
Thank you. So without knowing anything about it, another production company coming into the comic book realm or just the geek movie realm in general, I think is a good thing in any way, simply, if anything, because it gives the other 2 competition. So if they can hold their own and present and produce movies that are quality content, then that gives them a reason to step up, and maybe DC can fix themselves. Maybe Marvel can. I mean, most everyone likes what they're doing, so I guess they don't have much to worry about. But I don't know.
The guys who are doing it for Marvel, the Russo brothers, are the ones who see Civil War, and are doing the next 2 Avengers movies. So I mean, I missed
that. And also the other part is the writers and showrunners for this show are Andrew Bearer and Gabriel Ferrari, the writers of Ant-Man and the upcoming Ant-Man and Wasp.
Okay, see, so that makes me excited there. What Corey said doesn't, because I didn't like Winter Soldier as Captain America 2 or 3. But I don't like Captain America. No, I loved the Ant-Man movie, and I'm excited as hell for Ant-Man and Wasp. So
what did you think of Community?
I've never watched an episode. That's why I read that article.
I've
never watched an episode.
You should watch Arrested Development. If anyone should watch Arrested. Yeah.
I don't know. TV's weird with me. So the only time I watch anything, if I'm not watching something for a podcast episode, it's usually something I'm falling asleep to at night. So I might catch an episode and a half.
Do you watch Rick and Morty?
I started it like 6 months ago for the first time ever.
I wonder how you have podcasts. It's almost like you're the antithesis of everything that a podcaster is. It's like all of the geek cred is just you've been shortchanged. It's like someone just NPR exists. I guess he's the NPR of podcasters.
I mean, he does have like a Batman tattoo and like a Star Wars tattoo. And
right.
So I like Star Wars. I like my Star Wars. I like my Batman, and I like my video game. And I specifically said that it is not me that makes my podcast great. It is my guests and my co-hosts.
And your audience.
The hosts who let you co-host on it. Apparently.
So speaking of people smarter than you, Amy, what is your
So I mean, I have both a complicated relationship with television and superheroes. So like, I don't really like if it sounds like a Netflix 10 though. Like someday I'm gonna really enjoy spending 14 hours watching the entirety from beginning to end and wondering what I'm doing with my life. But I'm not gonna like appointment television it.
No, and that makes sense. Fair. I mean, honestly, with I look at the show, and actually I look at the whole lineup. Like they've got Valiant's also got a Harbinger film following a Bloodshot over at Sony with the director Justin Tippin, who did Kicks. There's an Archer and Armstrong film, which I've read a little bit more of Archer and Armstrong by Ruben Fleischer.
I'm excited for Archer and Armstrong.
Yeah, that one looks really cool, and a script by Terry Rossio, who did the Pirates of the Caribbean and Shrek, and there's J. Michael Straczynski. Like they've got the people. This is the cool part about this, about all the stuff that Valiant's doing. Like I think they did a Ninjak web series, which is just so they're hitting. It's almost like they've got the idea instead of films where we want to go. It's what works best. Like so they've got like Harbinger, okay, big event Avenger style movie. Archer and Armstrong, that's a movie franchise, like where there are sequels similar to like a Rush Hour or Lethal Weapon sort of thing. And then like you counter it with TV, Quantum and Woody. It's from the sounds of it, it's very much TV oriented, whether it's on Netflix or Amazon Prime or on one of the TV channels. And so this is where I applaud them. And then they're getting writers who are doing everything. It seems like they're looking at this and going, okay, what's the best way that this would make sense to release it?
One of the things to me to also point out is that after Marvel and DC, Valiant is really the next biggest shared superhero universe, because Image isn't a shared universe. Even from the very beginning, it was different houses and different creators, and they did try to create a shared universe for a little while, and then they tried to do the anniversary where they brought all those creators back, except for Jim Lee, who sold out to DC. But whatever, that Image return thing never finished because all of those guys are really great about not completing their work. But the recent thing with Mark Miller getting brought into Netflix, most of Mark Miller's projects don't have anything to do with each other. And also, most of the stuff that he's done so far has already been optioned by other people. So I'm not sure exactly what Netflix is getting out of that, other than Mark Miller developing new stuff for Netflix, which is fine because his properties do really well when they transfer over to film. There's not much else that you're going to see that could do a Marvel or DC universe. And that's what everybody's kind of screaming for right now. So I'm a little confused, not terribly disappointed, but a little confused. The Valiant stuff isn't in one house. It's not going to be in one place. I appreciate having TV shows and films, but if it's not all one production company so that you can have the potential for crossovers, which the Valiant universe definitely has, some of their properties like Eternal Warrior jumps around between Archer and Armstrong, all these things, all those characters tie in together. It doesn't bug me, but I'm weirded out by the fact that that didn't happen, because when you see Universal trying so hard to make the Universal Monster shared universe, which is just dumb as shit because they can't make one of those movies work, let alone put 10 of them together. I can't figure out where someone missed the boat on this.
They missed the boat at the harbor. That's where it happened, honestly. I mean, it's
This ship had sailed.
Yeah. So the next news story, and this is only the second one, is more info on the new Hellboy reboot. There was news that They shortened the movie title from Hellboy, The Rise of the Blood Queen to just Hellboy, isn't it all? And then the news is that Mike Mignola has said that the B.P.R.D will be in the film. Now, I'm going to pass this off to Corey because Corey is a big Hellboy fan and is Facebook friends with Mike Mignola, I believe. So
Mike and I go way back to when I friended him on Facebook, and he hasn't noticed yet that I'm not someone that he should be friends with.
I feel that way about all my friends.
I remember Levi, who I do comics with occasionally, saying to me one day, he goes, Mike Mignola just replied to one of your Facebook posts. I'm like, oh yeah, I know. He's like, Mike Mignola? Just, like, yeah, I know. It's cool, man. Whatever. The B.P.R.D, we've seen them. We've seen them in the other Hellboy movies. That was what they kind of focused around. Abe Sapien, the pyromantic character that he was in a relationship, who I don't think is going to be in this because they cast his Hellboy's love interest in the movie, and I don't think she's playing Liz, I think was the character's name. She probably came in as a different character later on when he left the B.P.R.D. Oh, and Seth MacFarlane played the guy in the suit that was in the second one. It was very funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for this. The more I hear about it, they are leaning towards doing it as a horror movie as well, which is something we've been pitched over and over again. I remember when Doctor Strange was first announced and they were talking about how it was coming together, and they were saying it was going to be Marvel's horror movie. And now they've been saying that about the New Mutants, is that it's going to be more horror aspect than it is just plain superheroes. And I keep waiting to see that happen. And I can see that working for either of those properties. But Hellboy makes total sense because that's where Mignola came from. Mignola was doing the dark gothic horror themed art and comics. And that's what allowed him to help spin off into doing stuff on his own with Hellboy at Dark Horse and creating his whole universe. And I want to see some of his other characters. I want to see Screwtop Head, and
that
I want to
should
see
be an Amazon show.
Yeah,
I think Screw on Head, because Sci-Fi did that one like pilot episode years and years and years ago that like you can still find on YouTube, and it was incredible. And I have been waiting for Amazing Screw on Head to be a Netflix show forever.
Did you ever see the short that they did, or the animation that they did? They were going to do a Goon movie that looked just incredible. Oh man, try to find that because that was exquisitely well done and just never came to fruition. But there was some really good stuff happening, or it seemed like it was going to happen for a while. And now I'm sure all these companies are like, why didn't we stick with that? Because look where we are, where comic books are 90% of the blockbusters out there, and everything's owned by Disney.
Mm-hmm.
The other part is David Harbour is, now not just famous for it. He's been in a ton of stuff. Unfortunately, one of them was Suicide Squad, but he's been in Stranger Things. And so it's a very easy step to say, oh, I really like Stranger Things. Oh, I'm wearing my Dustin 3-Eye shirt again. Now you can come watch me play Hellboy in this other dark gothic kind of feel. And yeah, absolutely, people should jump on that. I'm excited for it.
So are you not concerned with the fact that they've recast Hellboy?
No, I mean in a perfect world, I would have liked to see Perlman get to do the trilogy. Perlman is fantastic and played a great Hellboy. But once they decided that this is the direction that they're going in, and because of all the complications of trying to get that movie off the ground for so many years, if they're starting over, I at least like the fact that they're starting over with high quality people, high quality creators, and I bear no ill will towards Mike getting to see his creation back up on the screen again.
Right. No, for sure. No, I'm excited to see it. I liked the original movies with Perlman.
Did you guys see the animated movies that they did?
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh, those are so good.
Yeah, and they use the voice cast is the people who played them in the films. I mean, not David Hyde Pierce, who played Abe in the first one, but the guy who was actually playing him in the suit and everything and voiced him in the second one. And it was really good stuff. Right now. Yeah, because he's like all of
Doug Jones, who gives free hugs at conventions. Yeah, I'm kind of bummed about this.
So does Nate, but it's out of a van that says free candy in the back.
Yeah. I'm a little bummed about this because I don't do horror, and Hellboy is like my favorite. But there's Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water, which if you tell me that's not Abe Sapien, I will call you a liar. And so it's fine. Like I feel like I'm still he's like, well, I wanted to do another Hellboy movie, but I can't. So I'll just definitely not do this Abe Sapien film. It's fine.
So
I
Amy,
check the
I'm in
math,
the
the
same,
numbers work out.
yeah, Amy, I'm in the same boat as you. Like as a person who has guested on Podcast of Terror twice, we will not talk about the second time. It did not happen. I apologize, Corey.
Whatever.
I picked Edward Scissorhands for the second movie just
There
because
you go.
Amazon said it was a horror movie. I'm like, all right, fine, let's do this.
I did Pan's Labyrinth, so I get you.
The my horror movie listing is that I've watched is very small. I think it's maybe 5 movies, and I loved the Hellboy movies. That was my introduction to Hellboy, and I loved him. Actually, I think I have the DVD behind me in the locker thingy, and I loved it just because it was so different than all the comic book movies that were out there at the time, and all that. And I loved Guillermo del Toro's art and look of everything here. And then hearing this, it was the same thing as loved David Harbour, loved him on The Newsroom and Stranger Things and all this. Ian McShane, hell yes. I mean, if we can't get John Hurt, let's get Ian McShane because he's basically playing the Professor Broom's character right now with American Gods in a way. I mean, as the guide. I don't got anything else to add with the Hellboy story, so I'm going to move on to the Power Pack. So the next story is Power Pack and more are returning for Marvel Legacy. This is getting in the comic books side of things, so I apologize to the people. So the big one, and I picked this mainly because they hit at Power Pack, and I know Corey is a big Power Pack fan. That's the reason why I bought these Power Pack comic books for the audio listeners. Check out the YouTube video behind me. You can see 5-6 issues of Power Pack that I bought at a flea market down in Amish country, Indiana. And also it's because it was either that or X-Force. And I'm like, yeah, let's do these. This looks like a good run. But so Marvel has been doing the DC line or the DC approach of things with their legacy, which is supposed to reboot, so it's more older reader friendly. They're doing a lot more legacy numbers, so like Thor's going back to its old legacy numbers. Power Pack is one of the books that's going to be coming out starting with its legacy numbers, so it's going to be starting at issue number 63. So the cool thing is they have 5 books in here that they've announced. So Power Pack is being written by Devin Grayson.
Yep.
And the art is done by Marika Cresta. And the story is going to start out with where is Power Pack? And we're going to follow Katie Powers as she goes through searching for her family or through her family history just as an old foe returns. Then we're also going to get a continuation of the Spider-Man Deadpool story with Robbie Thompson and Chris Bachalo. Well,
I've always pronounced it Bacalo, but I've only ever seen it in writing, so it could be Bachalo.
And hey, I just recorded for the Patreon thing, so I am no stranger to butchering names here. So, but that's
Chris. Chris is actually one of my all-time favorite artists.
Yeah, what else has he done?
He's done a lot of stuff at Marvel. He's done runs on Captain America. He's done runs on X-Men. In the 90s, he was one of the originators of Generation X with Scott Lobdell as the writer. They co-created the book and co-created all the characters. If you ever get the chance to read the first year or so of Generation X and the Generation X Age of Apocalypse book that they did, some phenomenal stuff in that. Bacalo would draw stuff into the borders and everything. He would have like an extra story going on outside of the panels, which was just awesome to see. He also did Death, the High Cost of Living at Vertigo with Neil Gaiman.
Nice.
Excellent guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
The other one, because that one's sticking with its normal because it's came in, like 2 years ago. Guardians of the Galaxy is keeping the writer, Jerry Duggan, who did Deadpool during the Marvel Now times, and they're bringing in artist Marcus Toe, and they're reverting back to the original numbering, so it's going to be 137 and 138. And this is one of the things that, like, I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at Ben Reilly, Scarlet Spider. I'm excited for this. I picked up the Marvel previews at my local comic shop last week, and looking through here, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be spending like $1,000. Like at all the checklists in here alone, like they've got, Amazing Spider-Man's going to be doing the legacy numbering, Avengers, Venom already.
Yeah, the legacy numbering, you're saying it's going to continue it, but that's not what exactly it is. In cases like Guardians of the Galaxy, where they've had multiple titles relaunching back to number 1 and everything, what they're going to do is they're going to add up all those numbers to make the number that they're picking up now be like the next issue if that had continued from 1 up through 127.
Okay,
then the
can
120.
Can I ask you a question for somebody who maybe has read a comic book? That's always
and
been
he calls himself a Marvel fan. except for
the movies. That's always been my deterrence to reading comic books. Is you have all the multiverses, you have all this series and this series. So I have this flaw where I'm a completionist. Like I haven't even started The Witcher 3 yet, because The Witcher 1 is so horribly optimized on modern PCs, it plays like shit. And if I can't play 1 and 2, I don't want to play 3. So that's how I am. Like if I'm not starting, like with the movies, you know how everyone says, "Oh, stop with the origin stories." It's like no, like if you're telling the story over again, start at the start. Like that's where you start. So I don't like tell me it again in their version. So like with comics, I've never really known where to go. Like everyone's like, "Oh, we'll just pick off here." I'm like, okay, well, what about before that? Like where is and obviously with some of them you go back to decades.
Yeah.
But like, I guess even with Batman, like I tried to get into the New 52, which I guess was just bad according to some people.
Sorry, I will cut you off right there. The Batman run for the New 52, the written by Scott Snyder and drawn by Greg Capullo, that is great. Out of the New 52 stuff, that is one of the stronger titles out there.
But the flip of that is that the Batman of the New 52 is one of the things that pulled continuity in a very convoluted and sometimes slipshod way over from before the New 52 even happened. And so that is a terrible place to try to jump in, because they were trying to finish stories that had started, like the Batman Inc. stuff, and at the same time having to change things because some of those characters no longer existed. And I completely feel, as a person who I've managed or worked at 3 different comic stores, one of the hardest things for me to do is to give people a jumping on point for a book that they're interested in. If someone sees a Superman movie and comes in and they're like, I want to read Superman, it's trying to find that spot to start them out at. And that's why it's nice when it's a mini series or a graphic novel as opposed to the mainline book. Because what these companies have unfortunately done, Marvel is probably the worst of this, is that they've created so many continuing crossovers and so many continuing events that by the time you finish one event, 1, it's not written to an actual ending, and 2, it just leads you directly into the next event. And at the same time, they're doing that event book, that series of like 8 comics, but then by the time they're done, it's actually 10. They've also got the story going on in all of their other titles. Some of them have really precisely hinging moments so that if you're only reading that miniseries, you're not getting everything you need to get a complete story from it. That's incredibly frustrating, and it's part of what people have been complaining about with Marvel for a long time, and what they were hoping that Legacy would fix. I'm not sure that they're there yet. DC, when they relaunched into Rebirth after the New 52, they have done very few crossovers. And the crossovers they've done, they've been very careful with, and they've only involved 1 or 2 titles at a time. They haven't done any big miniseries event books yet. Now they're starting to with Dark Knight Metal. Yeah. And that's okay, because it really stems from the Batman books that Snyder's been writing all along. So if you've just read all the Snyder stuff, you kind of have everything you need to start into with that. But I completely understand. So you might want to look at, if you're interested in comics, but you're not interested in having to read 70 plus years of comic continuity, look at some of the things from Image, look at some of the things from Vertigo, look at some of the things from Dark Horse, where you can get a whole run by a single creator, a single creative team, and have it be able to have a beginning, middle, and end. And that will at least give you your end. Now, when I was a kid, I read comics and I jumped in wherever they were, and there was no safety belt for me. It was just like, well, this is where Justice Society is, so if you want to read Justice Society, enjoy. But they also used to have comics that had a whole story in one issue, or sometimes several stories in one issue, and they were complete, and you didn't have to buy the next one because you were chasing those things down on newsstands at the time. They've lost that ability too, unless you're reading Archie. So go into a store, find a quality store, check reviews and stuff, or look up 1-800-comicbook.com. Find somebody who can sit there and say, okay, what are you interested in? What is the stuff that you like? And they'll help pinpoint something that you might enjoy, and then try to read that first and see if you get a taste for comics, and then you kind of pick your way through after that.
All right, that makes sense. See, now I have to correct myself a little bit, because there was one series, again, stepping away from the superhero cape and cowl stuff. Lock and Key, I read front to back. And
Yeah.
that was really good. But again, that was really easy. It was one bulk purchase on Comixology front to back. It wasn't something where I had to figure out what was where. Like, I just bought the bundle and it was all right there.
And
So
you didn't have to go through the hell of waiting for the years of it coming out.
Right. Yeah. That's nice too. It's nice when you can binge things. But yeah, so I mean, I've had that Comixology subscription thing ever since they started it, because it's like, you know, you through Amazon Prime, things like that. So, but I go and I look, and it's just it's a matter of being overwhelmed. It's like I don't know where to click.
Amy, are you a comic reader? Because it seems like you have a little bit more knowledge of this stuff.
I read weird comics. Like, I mean, I've done some of the Hellboy stuff, but I certainly don't go through everything. But like, I read like Wormwood Gentleman Corpse, and like
Nice.
I'll go into a bookstore or a comic shop, and I will go find like some strange, obscure like collection, and I'll go there. Like, it's the same thing with TV. Like, I can't do the issue to issue in the same way that I don't do episode to episode anymore, with very rare exception.
So, Corey, my question for you is, and it's a very specific one, because I know you haven't been able to / give up on comics. Would Power Pack get you to come back in?
I'm very interested in a Power Pack return. I've been interested in Power Pack returning for a long time. This does seem to be picking up the fact that the characters have aged. We've seen an adult Alex Power for a number of years. He showed up in New Warriors, I think in the 90s, and he was part of the Future Foundation with Fantastic Four characters. We've seen Julie Power as what was it? The Losers was a book from Marvel for a little while. It was a bunch of ex-superheroes who were in a support group together. Yeah, that I'm not sure if I got the name right, but we know that these characters continue to exist, but we haven't seen Katie or Jack in a long time since Alex was borrowing their powers to become Power Packs. I have a love for these characters. I had a subscription to Power Pack in the 80s when it first came out. That's a book that I read from issue 1, Nate. And it was kids, and they were right about my age, so it was something that I kind of grew up with them, much in the way that I kind of grew up with Kitty Pryde and with Dick Grayson, except they stayed young longer. And so I didn't necessarily age out, because I don't see books or reading that way. I don't have a problem reading books that are aimed for younger readers or star younger characters, just like I don't have a problem reading books or watching shows that star female characters. Even though I'm not, I can handle it. It's what fucking imagination is for. But I loved this book because I read it from the beginning, and because it created a universe that was tied into the Marvel universe, but also very much its own. We introduced characters like the Starks as the main villains in that from space. We had the Chameleons, who were space ponies, essentially. It all kind of had a magic to it that I hadn't got to see many books from the beginning to its eventual end. I loved it. And so, yeah, certainly. And I like Devin Grayson a lot. I think that she's a great artist, or not artist, writer and creator, who unfortunately got kind of not necessarily drummed out of comics, but disappeared from comics after she had a not wonderfully embraced Nightwing storyline. But she's great. She is a really good writer, and I think that she's someone that I would trust to write Power Pack if we can't get the original creative team back. Yeah, I would get this. Just for nostalgia alone. But I also, is it a continuing thing, or is this one of the ones that Marvel's announcing that might just be a one-shot?
I think this would be a continuing thing, because the only thing that I've seen that's been one-shots is actually what my Elseview is with the Marvel Generations.
Okay.
So, but with like looking at the preview, like the preview stuff on here, and seeing, and this is stuff in this article that's coming out later than this, because this is the stuff in this article or the book is coming out in October. So this is like, you know, end of the year and all that. It's looking like, you know, there is stuff that is going to be continuing on. And then there are things that are, you know, just ending. It all looks really on the Marvel side anyways, because, you know, this one was free and I didn't have them extra cash to pay for the actual preview, giant, enormous previews book. I swear, it's like if I got that, I'd be like, just dragging it out with how big those things are. But I look at these and I honestly see this Marvel Legacy as a way for Marvel to hopefully, and this is my hope, if they execute it, great. If not, I sure as shit hope that they figure out, you know, continuity. One of the things that we talked about on earlier episodes was the whole inclusion of, you know, these other characters, you know, like Sam Wilson as Captain America and Jane Foster as as the female Thor and all these other things, where I look at these as I love these stories. It's so cool. It's such a different take on it. Sam Humphries, who did the writing for Captain America, Sam Wilson, was telling such a great racially driven story where it honestly, we could have had this in the news this past 2 years of oh well, Sam Wilson's not my Captain America, hashtag take back the shield and all this other shit. And it's like you realize he's saving people, right? He's being a hero. Who cares if he's black? Who cares if he has a bird and he flies? He's saving people. He's doing good. Shut up, you fat pundit person. And all that stuff. On the opposite side with the Thor book, the Mighty Thor book, it's where you're like, who cares that it's someone who has a hammer? Your son ain't picking up that hammer. He gave up on that a long time ago. He'd rather become an alcoholic. So, sure, yeah, go after this person. Oh, we must find her. I always relate this to people that comics has always been about, how you relate to them, always about the underdogs and all this stuff. That's what the X-Men were, is always an analogy to racism and stuff like that. That's what, a lot of these books have been. And that's where I always tell people that, my favorite characters are not the original or the prototypical superhero. It's always, someone else, a different type of person, and call me weird, but whatever. All right. I believe that's it for the news. And so we will be back after I do a Patreon read. We got a Patreon over at gncast.com/support. And on there, you will find the extra things. I had hinted at it throughout the whole thing, but one of the things you get at the $5 level is my comic book picks. And you get some of the reasons why I picked these comic books. 2 of the comics I will be talking about here in a minute. And it's one of these things that, we're getting these extra shows. I know Peter Fisher is working on his show that is sounding freaking awesome. And then you're helping us out. You're helping us keep the lights on. And we're doing our best to give you extra stuff. And you can find all this at gncast.com/support. It's a monthly charge. Do as little as $1, do as much as you want. We appreciate it. The other way is the Amazon affiliate link that's on there. Go there, shop, and we get Jeff Bezos' money. And I like that idea.
and if you've been holding back on supporting the Galactic Network because you didn't want any of your money going to the people who were giving Podcast of Terror voice, just feel great about doing it right now because Podcast of Terror is on hiatus. So pay up now quickly before we come back and you lose your window.
For more on this Galactic Network podcast, go to gncast.com. That's gncast.com.